Salam guys, welcome to my channel. This is Motaz, your host, and it's time for some tutorial goodies. And today we will be getting into the steps of creating a cinematic interview setup. Well, this could also work for your regular YouTube filming as well if you modify the light properly. Now, before we start, I'd like to let you know that for this tutorial I used the minimum equipment possible so that everyone could afford it. And without further ado, let's get into it. So for the audio, we would need a mic, a preamp, a splitter, XLR cables, headset, stand, and I forgot here the recorder. And here's the list of the main components. So moving on to lights, we would need a softbox, a spotlight, LED lights, these are optional, and light modifiers, any black thing you have in your house, a light stand, and that's pretty much it. And for stabilizers, I use my Manfrotto 190XB with a float head and a slider. The slider is optional though. Okay, moving on to the audio setup. I usually use an articulating arm to have more control over the shotgun mic direction. And make sure you use a sandbag to balance the boom stand. I use many items usually, but sometimes it actually falls. I dug in my room and extracted a rock. Actually, this rock dates to the Jurassic Age. So anyways, I used it, made sure that the sandbag is heavy enough to balance out the boom stand and the whole audio system. Mount everything, the zoom, the preamp, and also you would need a headset to monitor your audio, set it up in the right level, and voila, that's pretty much it for the audio setup. Using the regular overhead bulbs to illuminate your setup doesn't look particularly cinematic and pleasant, and most of the times does not quite appreciate the content you're delivering. So in our setup, we will be considering a few concepts from the world of cinema and storytelling to bring our flat, dull videos to another level of deep and rich imagery. So we'll get started by having all the pieces in place, the mic, the lights, and everything. And we want to turn off the lights of the room, of course, and we start with this initial setup. What you want to do is to avoid having the lights bouncing around on the walls. So what we want to do is to move the light towards a direction where it does not bounce. That means we move it away from any bright wall or any bright surface. And what we can do is use the black cloth to block the bouncing of the light and create what we call a negative fill, as you can see here. Then we can use our spotlight to have some interesting lights in the background. So the basic idea of the spotlight is to separate the object or the subject from the background. So you can see here we have created a separation between the highlights and the shadows. So that's what we call the negative fill and the positive fill, and that what creates the depth in the image. So you want to make sure that these two have, some contrast between them. In this tutorial, we're trying to create a somehow dramatic kind of effect on the subject. Documentary kind of style. Someone's telling a story. Yeah, that kind of look, but it all depends on how you direct the light. Now the problem now is that the light, the ambient light or the key light, is also illuminating the background. We have what we call a light leak now, and it's leaking to the background. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna move the light, the key light, the softbox, and move it to the other side of the subject so that it only lights the subject and not the background. And thanks to the black cloth, we will always preserve our negative fill. Another thing, try to position the subject as further away from the background as possible. That creates more depth, and it plays with the focal length so that you have a more blurry background. The camera has to be leveled up with the face of the subject, not higher, not lower, unless you want to express a point of view, of course. So in our example, we're just gonna level it up with the face and let the subject look at the interviewee instead of the camera, because in this case he is being interviewed. Otherwise, if you're hosting, if you're a host and you're presenting, talking to the audience directly, of course you have to face the camera. I'm using the 50 nifty, the 50mm 1.8 lens here, and I'm relatively a bit further from the subject. I'd say around like 6 feet from the subject. But I'd rather keep a relatively wide angle so that I have more control over the footage later on. I can zoom in and zoom out, and I have a variety of angles, or of not angles, but a variety of zoom ranges. That night it went below -20 here, and it got cold, so I put on my t-shirt. This t-shirt is actually electronically heated, so it actually does the job. Anyways, so I like this trick where you use the spotlights basically to have some strange, mysterious light going on in the background. Really interesting, creates that dramatic effect. Of course, it has to be not as bright, but very, very subtle, light in the background. I think this kind of creates a high dynamic range effect, where you have more depth in the image. Again, I'm always stressing on the depth. There is more contrast between the subject and the background. We're giving more visual clues to the viewer that this is a rich content. This is a deep content. We have contrast in shadows and light, contrast in distance, contrast even in color later on when we see the color grading. So I'm using here my LED lights and placing them in the background, specific spots where I can see that it's kind of dark, when it's kind of dark, very dark. And there is an interesting thing here, is that we alternate between the shadows and the highlights in the image. So you can see here we have on the face is light, is bright, and the opposing side in the background is dark. And you can see here an alternating pattern of highlights and shadows. And that again creates the depth I was talking about. I generally use the third of the screen, the third of the monitor, while my subject is on one of the thirds, and his neck is basically centered in the middle, horizontally. This has, I think this has psychological effect. You can see that when he faces the interviewer, you can see he's talking about a story, and the story is in the dark side of the monitor, like behind him. I see it that way. Also, you have freedom later on. If you want to edit, you can zoom in and slide to the left, to the right. But this is generally the best way to go about framing your interview setup or interview subject.
Alright. そう、この私がそこの棚になあってバラバラバラバラ。そうなんだ。棚にあなたがよくめ。難しいね。どうですから分かってるから。OK、それやね。そこの棚にあなたの横。この私がそこの棚にやれ。この私がそこの棚にあなたの曲を It's hard to keep it, flowing. あなたの曲を入れるのが役目。ごめんなさい。もう一度お願いします。はい。よろしくお願いします。始めましょう。そう。あなたの曲のすべてがそこに新しい曲が入ってくるとき、この私がそこの棚にあなたの曲を入れるのが役目。門番の仕事ですから。はい、門番。
This interview was in Japanese, and it was after that it was actually bought by a very famous Japanese TV channel. I hesitated actually because it's our tutorial and the content is very kind of exclusive to the tutorial, but we got good money out of this, and actually they're using it now in their many documentaries. It seems that we talked about was very important. Anyways, guys, that's all about it, and I hope you enjoyed the process of setting up a cinematic interview. I actually use this in a lot of interviews. Since it's very quick to set up, it works with the available equipment. We're not using any fancy equipment. In fact, we're using very, very low-end equipment that anybody can afford. And that's pretty much it. So, thanks for watching, guys. This is Motaz, my channel. Subscribe for more content, and I hope to see you guys next time. Until then, keep well. This is Motaz. I'm your host. Salam.